Bitcoin is like a limited edition Hermes Himalayan Birkin bag. That's our big idea. And that's because, just like that Birkin bag, Bitcoin gets its value from being rare, desirable, and highly sought after. So what's the difference? Unlike that Birkin bag, if you own even just a little tiny little bitty piece of one Bitcoin, it'll change your life forever. And that's something I wish I would have known on a bright and beautiful sunny SoCal day back in 2018, when I spent a few $100s that cost me over $8,000. And here's the worst part. It's a cost I'm still paying to this day, and I'll tell you more about it. So let's catch up right here on our coffee break on this episode of Lady Boss of Finance. Let's talk Birkins and Bitcoin. There's just something about strong women and Birkin bags. It's that ultimate symbol of exclusivity. And for so many women, it's that holy grail of all bags. And the holiest of all of those holy grails, it's the Himalayan Birkin. Why? Well, here we go. Let's start listing those reasons. It is handcrafted from Nile crocodile leather. It's dyed to look like those beautiful snow-capped Himalayas. And here's the crazy part. Prices, here we go. Here's the range between $100,000 and as high as $380,000. That's a house. Only a few of these bags are made each year, making it a collector's item that just very few women have. Here we have JLo with her Himalayan Birkin in, athleisure wear, because that's how you do in SoCal. That's where I am. We have Victoria Beckham, or as I still like to think of her, Posh Spice, with hers, who, by the way, is rumored to have a collection. This is bananas, just nuts. Over 100 Birkins. What? And of course, we can't forget the Kardashians. Enough said. Or is it? Because there's another woman missing from this Birkin-toting trio. And like them, she's invested her own money into a symbol of rare luxury. Except she poured in a whole lot more than the price of even the highest auction-off Birkin bag. Again, reminder, $380,000 for that. So this lady boss, who we haven't met yet, but you will, she has a net worth of $250 million. What? She's invested 25% of her personal fortune, over $62 million, into Bitcoin. Who's our mystery woman? Cathie Wood. Who's Cathie Wood? Oh, Cathie is this optimistic, visionary investor who's CEO of a company called ARK Invest. And that's a company that invests in these super big kinds of innovation and technology. And if we go back to our analogy, Cathie would be like whomever that first woman was who bought a Birkin bag when no other woman, no one else thought it would be such a prized luxury item. And okay, so just to fangirl for just a hot second right here, I saw Cathie at a conference just a few months ago, and oh my God, it was just so cool. She just, chef's kiss, such an inspiration. So back to the story and a little bit more later on why she's so fabulous. So Cathie, she saw Bitcoin's worth and value long before the world did. So let's rewind the clocks a little bit. Back in 2015, so that's the time when we were all debating if the dress was black and blue or white and gold, which by the way, it's totally black and blue, but if you see it differently, legit let me know in the comments because I can't see white and gold in it. Anyways, Cathie, she read a single white paper written by another person that sparked her to invest both her own money and her company's money in Bitcoin. She, by the way, invested in Bitcoin. Oh man, That was when the price, it was around $250 per coin. So today, as of January 2025, it's at $104,000. So like I said, she saw its worth and value long before a lot of people did. And it was all down to that white paper. So who was that person who captured Cathie's attention with this white paper? That white paper author, that was Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's creator. Who's Satoshi? In our analogy, Satoshi would be that, mysterious visionary designer behind Birkin. And why did I say mysterious? Am I trying to be mysterious? Well, maybe a little bit, but mysterious because to this day, we still don't know who Satoshi is. But their creation, Bitcoin, has redefined what luxury looks like for men and for women. Now, here's the deal. So the crypto world is full of bros and men, and so you'll often hear a masculine pronoun when people talk about Satoshi. But that's how they're telling history, and this is our coffee chat. And since Satoshi is still unknown, regardless if there's an HBO documentary, no one is giving 100% credibility to it. Satoshi is still relatively, conceivably unknown. And so Satoshi is a woman in my eyes. So what did Satoshi do and say that would cause Cathie to see the potential of cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, but for years and still even to this day, equally cause news headlines, all these others, to call it a scam? Well, let me explain. In her white paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which was published in early 2009, Satoshi proposed Bitcoin as a solution to many of the deep-rooted issues that caused the 2008 mortgage crisis. And here's the deal. Whenever you speak truth to power, it doesn't always end happily ever after, as we know. So let's unpack that a little bit. There were three main things that Satoshi took issue with, three big problems in the financial world back then. Maybe it's still happening now. We'll see in a few seconds. You let me know in the comments after you hear these three things. Number one, lack of transparency. Financial institutions, they hid the true risks of investments from people. Number two, over leverage. There's a jargon word. What does that mean? Banks and lenders, they took on way too much risk that led to widespread defaults or loan failures. Not good. Number three, bailouts and mistrust. Governments spent trillions of dollars to bail out banks, and people, myself included, were furious that the government would do those bailouts and show favoritism of all people to the financial elites and not solve the underlying issue that led to the global, not domestic, as if that would be better, the global financial crisis. So what was Satoshi's radical idea and solution that gets lovers and haters? We know the three big problems. What did Satoshi propose? 5 big solutions, 5 big things. Number one, transparency and trustlessness. 2008, crisis problem. There was this super opaque nature of financial systems that left normal, regular people like you and me completely unaware of the risks until things were too late. So Satoshi's solution was to use a public ledger. Stick with me here, we're gonna do some jargon and we're gonna break it down so it's easy to understand. Used a public ledger called a blockchain, where every single transaction, buy, sell, exchange, all of those transactions would be visible to anyone. What does that all mean? Well, let's go back to Birkin bags. If you think of Birkin bags or any other luxury bag, they have certificates, serial numbers, or stamps to prove your bag is real and legit. There's no relying on trust. That stamp, it records the bag's origin, the artisan, and the year of creation. And that's the blockchain Satoshi proposed, where just like your luxury purses, that bag stamp, the authenticity and history of each transaction is verifiable. So no counterfeit Birkins for you and no fake money if it's all on the blockchain. So now, number 2. Decentralization to avoid institutional failures. There's some jargon, let's break it down. So back in 2008, you had centralized in one area, centralized control of money by banks and governments, and that led to mismanagement and the need for bailouts. So what did Satoshi propose? The solution was, instead of centralized, decentralized. What does all that mean? Why does it matter to us? I mean that in Satoshi's solution, no single entity, no single company, no single government controls the production or the safekeeping of money. And again, as I just mentioned, like those Birkin bag stamps, transactions get verified by not one, but a distributed network of computers or nodes to make sure it's fully transparent to reduce failure. Let's break that down. That was a lot. So let's go back to Birkin. Think of walking with your Birkin in hand in a neighborhood bake sale, right? You're doing that versus getting your bread from a single bakery. If there's only one bakery in town and if it shuts down because the owner mismanages it or there's a power outage, everyone, not just you, but everyone loses access to bread and those lovely croissants and pastry snacks. And that's never good because let me tell you, I have never met a carb I do not like. So now let's imagine something different. Imagine a neighborhood bake sale where each house contributes, like a potluck. So even if one house stops baking their bread, the rest of the houses, they still continue to provide bread and goodies and all of those lovely pastry snacks. Instead of one chef doing all the food, it's potluck, everyone's bringing something. That's solution number 2, distributed. Solution number 3, fixed supply to fix inflation. Let's break that one down. Back in 2008, what was the problem? Well, you had centralized banks. They printed a crap ton of money to bail out financial institutions, which, what does that do? Well, we have a version of what happens when that happened not too long ago for us. It devalues money. It destroys public trust. And here's a financial term for you. It destroys public trust in what's called fiat, F-I-A-T, fiat money or government-backed money. Why are we using and explaining these terms? Because you're gonna look smart in those cocktail parties when those bros talk about trading and investing money. Fiat money, government-backed money. You got yourself a term for those parties now. And here's the thing. That should resonate with a lot of us right now because let me tell you, the prices to get even just a single loaf of bread, I love artisan bread, sourdough bread, so good. The prices to get sourdough bread at my local grocery bakery right now versus even just a few years ago, during or before the pandemic, just unreal. So Satoshi's solution is no inflation. Have a fixed supply. In this case, Satoshi proposed 21 million coins, 21 million Bitcoin, and no more. We're cutting it off at 21 million. Why? It makes it immune to inflation because you can't print more of it and you can't get more of it beyond those 21 million. Just like those Birkin bags, bringing it back to purses. That scarcity is what gives it, just like those Birkin bags, luxury value. We love scarcity. That's solution number 3. Solution number 4, empowering individuals. That sounds good, right? Well, let's bring it back. 2008, we had a problem. People like you and me, and even our parents with their houses, and I say parents because let's be real, we're millennials and we likely don't own homes. Certainly not millennials plus homes and home ownership in Southern California. That's where I live. But getting back on track, for some people who did and do own homes, back then in the mortgage crisis, they lost those homes. Some people, they lost savings, they lost jobs. And what happened to the banks? They were bailed out. And Satoshi took issue with that. So what did Satoshi propose? Satoshi's solution was to empower the individual, not big governments. Empower people like you, like me. And that was probably the most controversial. What? That sounds crazy, right? Like that's a good thing to have each individual citizen empowered. Why controversial? Well, controversial because it would take power away from a central government to do what? They could no longer print more and more money. And instead, it would give individuals control over their own money. What do I mean? How would we have control over our own money? Don't we have control now? Well, not really. When you buy or sell Bitcoin, people like you and me, we store it and we transfer that value without ever needing a bank. Think of all the people who have jobs right now who are in banking or in the government who function as those middlemen who are not needed anymore. You can feel how there's going to be a group of people who get uncomfortable or annoyed with the idea of blockchain and Bitcoin, can't you? Solution number 5, the last solution that Satoshi proposed. What was it that got so much hate? It's what Satoshi called the Genesis block. That was the first block she mined. What do I mean by mining? Well, basically she and any other Bitcoin miner, they do all this complex math, all these math problems and coding to get Bitcoin. Think back to when you had actual miners like in the gold rush, where you have people using pickaxes to dig and get real gold. So what was so controversial about that first block she mined? Well, she embedded a pretty bold message on the block's code. And here it is for you and me to see. The message says, the Times 6 January 2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. That was a direct reference to a headline in the Times newspaper, a national British newspaper, which highlighted the ongoing bank bailouts during the 08-09 financial crisis. In other words, Satoshi put a permanent and clear critique of the existing financial system and called out the news organizations who either were or were not being critiques of that very financial system. Such a lady boss move to do, like so baller. And if we go back to the Bitcoin analogy and the Birkins and the Bitcoins, that would be like the very first Birkin bag and the bag's designer stamping a message on the inside part of the bag that would say something like, Fashion Houses 1 January 2008, meant for size 0 models only. That type of message would have been a clear and bold statement against the very industry that bag's designer would have been part of. So Satoshi's message on the first block was clear to anyone who was in the traditional finance industry. Here is an alternative so this cluster crisis never happens again. And that brings me to my own alternative to a Birkin bag. This little beauty right here. So she didn't cost anything close to that $380,000 auction Birkin bag, but I'm going to tell you how, even though I paid just a few $100s for her, my version, my favorite purse, how, love her though I do, she's costing me over $8,000. It's time for my own confessional story because I wasn't always this confident with finance, not even close. And not even close to being competent in Bitcoin or technology. So let's rewind the clocks back to 2018, a time when Prince Harry married American actress Meghan Markle and when I bought my purse. Both clearly equally super important things for the entire world, obviously. We all have that one luxury item that, whether you can afford it or not, you bought it. For me, That item was this purse right here. The MCM Heritage Coated Canvas Rockstar Vanity Case in Cognac. The price tag? I paid $550 for that little beauty back in July 2018. And due to inflation, today, my same purse is now $690. We know the antidote to inflation now thanks to Satoshi's white paper, but back in 2018, I didn't know anything about Satoshi. What I did know is that Heidi Klum and Rihanna also had and wore this bag. So why did I buy this bag? I bought it for the same reason Heidi and Rihanna bought it. That same reason J-Lo, Posh Spice, let's go with it, and the Kardashians bought their Himalayan bags. And the same reason you bought your own special luxury item. To make a bold, thoughtful choice that made you feel good, to make you feel empowered, and to have, just a special something that reflects your unique values. At that time in my career, I was starting to get those raises, and I definitely leaned into the whole treat yourself just a little bit hard. I told myself I was being good with my money because I was buying designer clothes and accessories on secondhand luxury marketplaces like Trade Easy or the sale section in Anthropologie. I mean, I was practically saving money. We all know girl math when we see it. And I was 100%, not 90, not 99, 110% doing girl math to get all the things and all the stuff I wanted. And then I saw this little beauty. She was not on a secondhand luxury marketplace. I was, just casually scrolling on Saks Fifth Avenue's website, a place I had no business being, but always felt a little good and a little naughty to do it. And especially when it was a slow day at work, and then I was scrolling, and then boom, I stopped scrolling, clicked into the page, and saw all of these gorgeous high-res photos of this purse. Just looked absolutely perfect at every angle. So what did I do? I do what I know a lot of my girlfriends also do with me. I pinged my work bestie, who also loves shopping, and sent her a link to this purse. Instantly, not a second lost. She said, buy it. It was meant for you. All caps, exclamation points, everything. And that's all I needed. Just one small exchange with one of my girlfriends, and I bought this $550 purse. And when I got it in the mail, the feelings. I still get transported there. Those feelings were so real, and the compliments that I got after it and still get to this day, also so real. But what was also very, very real? This cute and little amazing purse that, by the way, I still very much love and bought for $550. It actually cost me $8,626, and she'll likely cost me way more over this next year in 2025. What kind of math is that? That's because $8,626 is how much money I would have had today if I had invested that same $550 in Bitcoin back in 2018. And I know hindsight is always 20/20, and if I had known X, I would have done Y. It seems like it always goes that way for so many things, But here's the deal. Here are the three things I learned about myself from this purchase. Number one, the power of opportunity costs. Every purchase we make has an opportunity cost. the value. What's opportunity cost? It's the value of what you give up by spending your money when choosing one alternative over another. And in this case, this purse that I loved and I still very much love, it didn't cost just $550. It cost me the chance to grow my wealth. And let me be clear, I do not believe there is anything wrong with indulging in life's small luxuries. Not a bit. You will always find me with some avocado toast and some champs on a Sunday morning. But what was I doing back in 2018? That wasn't indulging in life's small luxuries. It was often reckless spending on money I didn't have, and then not wanting to look too hard at my finances. Because why? Well, I felt too ashamed because I would log into my credit card company's website to make a payment, and I wouldn't even have to log in. I would just think about it, and I would fear whatever that grand total number was. I didn't want to see it. I had way deeper issues with both spending and saving habits that needed to change. That brings me to lesson number 2, emotional spending versus empowered spending. Emotional purchases, like this purse right here, it feels so empowering in the moment. But there's a difference between getting a dopamine hit and feeling empowered in a moment versus actually being empowered with your money and having your money serve you and not the other way around. That first option of emotional spending, that's what happened when I looked around at my coworkers and my friends. And what I do, I kept comparing myself. I saw others with luxury items and wishing and wanting something to match everyone else's status around me. Emotional spending, it's that treat yourself moment of doing girl math and, not thinking too hard on that something that you want. And for me, it was buying something like a purse. That's emotional spending. So what's the counter? What's the alternative to that? That's empowered spending. And empowered spending is very different. So, for example, if emotional spending is all about reactive, impulsive purchases where all you're doing is buying really for someone else, about comparing yourself to others, then empowered spending is all about proactive, goal-oriented decisions and purchases. So what does that mean? What does it mean to have a goal-oriented decision with purchasing things? Well, for me, empowered spending is a 3-word phrase I ask myself. Who am I? I see something I want, and I ask one small question to myself. Who am I? And that's enough to pull me out of my, oh my God, I need this, or my life just won't be complete haze, pulls me out of that, and does just enough to bring awareness to the situation that I actually am living in, to reality. Who am I? What's the situation I'm talking about that I want to make small intentional changes and create new small habits so that I can get rich? I can become financially free. Because when you build in, at least for me, when I would build in and still do build in that few second pause behind every single spending, investing, or saving choice, no matter how big or small, no matter how much it gets old real fast, behind all those decisions is a story we tell ourselves. And when I was emotionally spending on things, I told myself stories like, I deserve to treat myself to something nice. It's a good story. I would tell myself other stories like, I worked hard and so I should get nice things. And let me be clear, there's no judgment, no blame that should go with these types of stories. But the reality, and this is true just for me, the reality is those stories, they kept me poor and in credit card debt. Those stories didn't serve me or my goals. So not long after I bought and received my cute little purse, which I love and still do, and I came to terms with my credit card balance, I made a small but meaningful choice. A choice to tell myself different stories to answer my "who am I?" question. Stories that would get me closer and closer to building wealth. I didn't know how to invest at the time, but I knew I wanted to learn how to invest. I wanted to be wealthy, and I wanted to achieve bigger life goals. So what were those stories that I would answer and say? I'm the kind of person who waits 24 hours before spending money on a purse. Stories like, I'm the kind of person who unsubscribes from fashion newsletters that try to get me to spend my money. I know where those brands are, and if I want to buy something, I'm not going to forget one of my favorite stores is Anthropologie. And so one of those stories, one of my favorite ones, I still tell myself today. I'm the kind of person who does not use phrases like girl math to normalize overspending habits. Because girl math keeps me poor, but real math gets me rich. And that brings me to lesson number 3. Girl math is fun, but real math is better. And let's get one thing really clear and just say right out of the gate, I hate math. Hate it. It was my absolute worst subject in school. But you know what I hate even more than math? We know this image. Being in a social situation like a cocktail party or walking into Sunday brunch looking all cute with your girlfriends and overhearing men talk about finance, investing, or let's say Bitcoin, and smiling and nodding along without knowing what the fuck they're talking about. I hate that worse than math because I am not a dumb person and neither are you. That's why you're having coffee with me right now and are learning how Bitcoin is like a Birkin bag. You're here to learn the language of money because money comes up in every aspect of life, from job raises to brunch bills. And the sooner you ditch girl math behind like a bad boyfriend and fall in love with understanding real math, the sooner you'll be able to live the life you want to live and accomplish what you really want to accomplish in life. So, what does real math look like? Real math, it isn't so much about those complex math equations, which thank God I can't do. It's what Satoshi does. It's what other Bitcoin miners do. It's what Cathie Wood does. It's not something you have to do. Oh, glad I don't have to do it either. Real math, it's knowing that $5 a week you can save and invest grows exponentially over time to get you real wealth, especially if you invested and not just save it. Real math is what lady bosses like Cathie Wood do, who actively look for and invest in companies that have high potential of 10xing. You buy it for $10, boom, it's $100. Real math is taking a step back, not seeing money from a place of scarcity, of not having enough of it, and seeing money as a tool that, depending how you use it, can either be a shovel that gets you into a hole of credit card debt or a pickaxe that you strike to get gold. Bitcoin gold. You see how I brought it back around? Full 360. Yes, all right. So what can we do now? What can we do? What are those next steps, those takeaways, small but intentional things you can do today? I have 3 small pro tips. Pro tip number 1, think big, start small with identity-based choices. My tip is that you need to have absolutely those big life goals that you want to achieve. Define them. It's then equally important to break down those big goals into bite-sized pieces, one bite at a time, so you can see and feel good about the progress you're doing. Again, one bite at a time. You're not eating the whole dinner. You're eating one bite of that dinner. You're getting closer to that whole plate. And that way, what you want to do is take and align those small steps with the story of the person you want to become. What do I mean? Here's an example of what I mean and what you can do next. I asked myself that 3-word phrase, who am I, before any purchasing decision. I aligned my long-term big goal with identity-based storytelling. That's the who am I phrase. And if this method resonates with you, definitely 100%. Check out the link in this video description for James Clear's book. It's called Atomic Habits, because that's who and where I got the idea from. No sponsorship. I don't get any money for saying that. Just again, that's the source text for that kind of habit, and want to make sure you can go get that book. Small pro tip number 2, automate your way to success. This is so important. Cannot stress this enough. Use automation and systems, not willpower, okay? Automate all that saving, all of that for your oh shit fund or your emergency fund. Create systems that invest for you so that you do not rely on willpower or motivation. As my favorite Peloton fitness instructor, Rebecca Kennedy, always says, motivation, she's a flighty bitch and she's always late. So what's a real life example of that? The way I became the person who I wanted to be was taking 10 minutes in one day, just one time, take 10 minutes, and I set up an automated coffee budget, $5 a week system where my money went straight from my checking account and directly into what I wanted to invest in. That's it. Because that simple and powerful automation friend, she is your BFF. She is your ride or die friend who's consistent, reliable, and always shows up on time. Now, don't get me wrong. Motivation, she great, she good, but don't rely on her. Rely on your automation BFF. And that brings me to my last pro tip. And it's probably the most important one. Dollar cost average your way to confidence and to wealth, both of those things. What's dollar cost averaging, or DCAing as those finance guys and now us finance gals say it? DCAing is an investment approach where you spread out your purchases so that the total price paid is less affected by market timing. That's some jargon, so let's break it down. What does that actually mean? What's an example? I love examples. It helps make things clear. What it means is you invest a set amount of money once a week, or maybe it's once every 2 weeks, or some regular cadence. Doesn't matter how low or how high the price is for what you're investing in. You invest the same low amount. So what's so important about DCA, dollar cost averaging? What are the benefits? Well, it's that ultimate strategy for empowered investing. Why? Because it's not this. It's not price is high, price is low. It smooths out your purchase prices, and it takes away, here's the really important part, it takes away the hard willpower, emotional-based decisions to help you consistently invest, whether it's investing in Bitcoin or other assets over time, without, here's the gold standard, without overthinking. What's the TLDR of DCA? You get more money over time without relying on your emotional state, without that willpower needed. And this brings us home to our final single life-changing takeaway message wrapped up in a neat little package. Remember our Birkin bag? That one that costs bare minimum $100,000? That's a ton of money for one bag. $100,000, actually $104,000 to be exact, also happens to be the price of Bitcoin right now as of January 2025. But you know what's even crazier? By the end of 2025, the best and brightest investors, those like Cathie Wood, they are projecting this is conservative prices, the lows that they're projecting for Bitcoin to be well above $250,000 per coin, $250,000. And that's because 2025 is what's known as the bull run of Bitcoin. And that means you're going to see Bitcoin's price soar way higher than it is now. And that sounds bananas, right? Bananas that Bitcoin could reach $500,000 without breaking a sweat. It's just doing a light little jog. And it's crazy, but let's think about it another way. Just like women in the workforce, Bitcoin right now is not being properly valued. That misvalue can become your superpower because we can invest smartly in what others don't see worthy to invest in. Just like Cathie did back when she bought and invested in Bitcoin when it was just $250. That's how much she paid for it. As a reminder, it's at right now $104,000. And the best part is you don't need that much. You don't need $104,000 to invest in it. You can start with as little as $5. The, price for a cup of coffee, and just be crypto curious. Because here's my one big takeaway message for you. You are worth investing in. Your big dream that you think is out of reach, it's worth investing in. Don't get thrown off by big numbers or by new things. All of what I said today in our coffee chat, it just boils down to me telling you that you and your dreams are 100% possible when you make small, intentional changes. And the sooner you recognize that you and your big dreams are worthy to invest in, the sooner those dreams become reality. And if that dream is to invest like a lady boss and, own a Birkin bag completely debt-free, fabulous, amazing, love it, do it. Just remember that even if Birkins and Bitcoin have prices, high prices, you alone are the ultimate limited edition, one-of-a-kind rarity, and you alone have true worth. And that is fantastic. I can't wait to see you in our next coffee chat. So click that like and subscribe button. Tell me what finance topics you would love to see explained in the way that makes sense to you and me. And I'll see you next time on Lady Boss of Finance.